fairer and more just trade system. So a big round of applause for our speakers. Thank you very much.
I would like to invite here Damian Murphy to come to the stage. Damian is a Senior Vice President for National Security and International Policy at the Center for American Progress in Washington, in the United States. He has extensive experience in international affairs as a leader, as an advisor, as program director. Most recently, he worked for 15 years in the United States Senate, most recently as a staff director of the United States Senate Committee on Foreign Relations. Amen. The floor is yours.
Well, good evening, everyone. I will be brief in my remarks so we can get to our drinks for the evening, but did want to wrap up and share some reflections on where we are in the United States right now. Again, my name is Damian Murphy. I serve as a vice president at the Center for American Progress, and I want to thank FEPS, FES, the PES group, and the S&D group for this invitation and the opportunity to join you. I'm honored to be here and share some brief remarks from how things look from across the ocean. You've heard today from some of my colleagues from CAP, Ryan Mulholland, who was just on the panel there talking about these trade and economic issues, Mike Williams earlier today, who was talking about climate issues and how we see those challenges amongst the progressive community in the United States. And then Robert Benson has joined me as well, who covers transatlantic issues for us at the Center for American Progress in Washington. So we are clearly in a rebuilding mode in the United States as a progressive community. We have a lot of work to do in the coming years, and the Center for American Progress aims to be a catalyst for thought leadership on climate, trade, healthcare, democracy, the economy, and the work that I lead on national security. At CAP, we spend every day thinking through how progressives will do things differently once we have the opportunity to govern again. And that means not just pressing play from the last administration and restarting a Biden approach. It means a serious rethink on what policies make sense for the American worker and their families, and taking into account the enormous change around the world that we're experiencing right now and will probably experience even more acutely come 2029. An increasingly digital economy, climate change, and the importance of bolstering those key industries that are central to our economic and national security interests. And our team at CAP is at work every day on those issues. So how will we succeed at home and abroad in accomplishing these goals? First, for us domestically, it's the hard work of rebuilding trust with the American people. We need to authentically build connections with our workers and families to convince them that our commitment to them is genuine. And we as a movement, as a progressive movement, clearly fell short of that last year during the campaign. So we have work to do. The world is changing dramatically, and we need policy solutions that are adaptive to the current realities while remaining true to our values. And that's the crux of it for us, remaining true to our values as we navigate this environment right now. The second is international solidarity. The far right is very good at building links across borders, which is ironic for a group based on nationalism and xenophobia. But be that as it may, the bonds that they have established are deep and they're dynamic. The depth of the dialogue that's happening in the transatlantic space amongst those on the far right is something to behold. It truly is, and you hear about it all the time. Conferences happening in Washington, far right leaders going to Washington, folks who aren't even in government getting meetings in the Oval Office, right? So that's kind of what we're up against and we're dealing with. So we need the same amongst progressives internationally. We need more solidarity, and that's why gatherings like this are so critical. Hearing ideas, debating, taking sustenance from being around like-minded friends. This is exactly what we need to be doing at this moment. Americans find ourselves in a pretty dark place right now. Every day the news is sort of an avalanche on top of us, be it what's happening internationally, see the president's speech yesterday in New York, but then also domestically in terms of the militarization of our police forces and seeing them literally on the streets of Washington when we walk to work. We see National Guard every day. So the opportunity to engage with our friends abroad gives us inspiration to continue on and is frankly very good for our mental health. So thank you. Third is rebuilding trust with Europe. And we acutely realize that there will be an enormous amount of work to do in the years to come on this front. You know, as I was sitting here listening to the panels throughout the day, it was frankly jarring to hear repeatedly the United States and China being lumped together as a challenge that Europe has to deal with. But I completely understand why that's the case. Right now, we as a country are not considered a partner. So this is a reality, and it requires us as American progressives to redouble our efforts to rebuild that trust now through conversations like this, but also more importantly, when we find ourselves back in power in the future. So let me just close with some glimmers of hope for where we are right now in the United States. Governors from big states, important states from across our country are standing up in a way that they hadn't been in the early months of this year, resisting these undemocratic trends that we're seeing and showing a lot of courage, a real willingness to speak out against what they're seeing coming out of Washington. Civil society is building energy and really starting to coalesce in a way that it frankly was relatively dormant in those early months. So we're starting to see those kernels come together and those flashes come together in a really positive way. And then, you know, what the administration itself is doing is actually deeply unpopular with the American people. If you look at polling numbers, the tariffs are deeply unpopular, even amongst MAGA folks. If you look at the recent law that the administration passed, this big, beautiful bill that the president refers to, this is a bill that gave tax breaks to the richest people amongst us and tore away health care from the poorest people amongst us. And the polling also shows that it's deeply, deeply unpopular. And then finally, you know, the administration's attacks on our closest allies, especially right here in Brussels itself, but across Europe, is also deeply unpopular if you look at the polling. Americans want to have friends abroad. They recognize the strength of alliances. They recognize that in order for us to pursue our interests, pursue our priorities around the world, we need to do it alongside our friends. And that is something that's deeply felt. So while that's not necessarily reflected in the actions or the rhetoric of this administration, it doesn't match with where the American people are and have traditionally been. But make no mistake, we have a substantial challenge before us, but our ideas are better. And as a movement, we need to do the hard work of convincing the American people that that's the case. So gatherings like this give us that energy and that inspiration to continue that work. So, you know, we really do deeply appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you. So thank you again for the invitation. International solidarity at this moment is more important now than ever, and we at CAP look forward to continuing this cooperation in the weeks, years, and months to come. So thank you very much.